We are fortunate enough to be in New Orleans and Louisiana, and I'm with Kevin Kane, and you're with the Pelican Institute.
That's right.
Are you the president?
Yeah, I'm the founder and president, and we've been around now for just over a year,
Okay.
and actually it was Atlas who played a key role in a number of ways in helping us get started. So, we're always happy to network with Atlas people whenever we get the chance.
Well, good. Yeah. Well, my coworkers are pretty fun people. But your wife was telling me that if you could briefly tell the story about how this all came about, because I'm a fellow at Atlas, and so is DeRoy Murdoch. And
right. Yeah. Well, basically, we had been living in New York for the past 5 years or so, and we had met DeRoy Murdoch at some social events, and would see him around at these sort of think tank events in New York, and I think we were at the Boss Jot dinner that IPN puts on, and that was really where I learned about this whole network of the SPN think tanks, and it really intrigued me because I was very interested in. I'm a lawyer by training. I was one of those miserable lawyers you always hear about, but I was always more interested in policy and politics, and so I asked DeRoy if anybody had tried to start a think tank here in Louisiana. Within, I'd say, less than 2 months of that conversation I had with DeRoy, we had committed to moving back here and starting this thing.
It's fantastic.
So we opened our doors in March of 2008. So we've been around for just over a year now, and it's been a fantastic experience.
Great, glad to hear that. So now, but why does there need to be like a free market think tank in Louisiana? I mean, there's no corruption, and the government runs pretty well, right?
It's amazing, We really just sit around and twiddle our thumbs because everything's gone so well here. I think for a number of years now, really, even before Katrina, there has been a shift in the culture, and I think more and more people around the state have recognized that these sort of populist policies, going back to the Huey Long days of tax corporations and then take that money and throw it around, and everyone will be happy as long as there are jobs. Well, eventually those companies packed up and moved to Texas or went elsewhere, and along with them a lot of the educated workers here and taxpayers did, and so I think people in Louisiana have recognized that those policies were bad, that we've paid a price for the corruption, and then of course Katrina, that didn't do a lot to sort of instill faith in big government, and so there was a sense that, at least I felt, that this was the perfect time for this kind of an organization to get started. And of course Katrina demonstrated the limits of government ability at the federal, state, and local levels. Now that's not to say that everybody has learned the same lesson from Katrina.
Right.
There are a lot of people out there who, after Katrina, say, well, see, we need more government and to make sure nothing like this ever happens again.
And I think most unfortunate, it's the faith that people put into the government, because you have a natural disaster that happened, and then you have people that are like, okay, now save me, as opposed to self-reliance and people helping one another out in communities and all that. Tell me about what the Pelican Institute is going to do to make this a freer state.
Well, that's a good question, and there are, I think, a whole bunch of things we need to do. I mean, one of the things we spend a lot of time and energy on is just building relationships. You need to know who the decision makers are, and you need to know how to influence them, whether it's with information, political pressure, and if somebody needs to be on the end of some political pressure, who's the group to do that? I mean, we're a 501c3, so we don't lobby or endorse, but it's good for us to know who can be involved in that process and influence the decision-making process. So we're constantly working to build relationships, to build a network of people who understand and share our values, and I think that's an important part of what we're doing. And then just looking for ways to educate and inform people. And sort of the classic think tank model is you have a scholar produce a study, a 50-page white paper, you send it out, hope that somebody reads it, hope that the media pays attention to it, and maybe you have some influence, maybe you don't. And that has a certain amount of value, and we have to spend, I suppose, a certain amount of time and money doing that. But with the new media, there's a whole new world and a whole, it's really breathtaking, the range of options there are now to get information out there, to tell people who you are, what you do, to find out who's interested in what you're doing, where they are,
Right.
what issues they're interested in. And so that's something, we've only been around for a year, we're still kind of dipping our toes into all this, but I really think it's the future for organizations like ours.
Sure.
It's so much more cost effective, and it'll be interesting to see 5 years from now what exactly we're doing to educate and inform people, but
Right.
I'm sure it'll be a lot different than what people were doing 5 years ago.
Probably with holograms or something.
Yeah.
But as news cycles speed up, you can have your scholar tied up on a white paper, and it's not relevant anymore after
Absolutely.
it's published. So,
Well, and let me give you just a quick example of something we did just recently. I think it's a great example of how you can do things in an effective way. There was, in this current legislative session that's going on now, there was a cigarette tax increase proposed, and I just happened to be going through the I get all these materials from different think tanks around the country, and the Mackinac Center had sent me their newsletter, and I happened to notice that they had done a study on how cigarette tax increases lead to more smuggling. And so I just gave them a call and said, hey, they're trying to raise cigarette taxes here in Louisiana. Is there any way you guys could calculate the impact it would have on our state? And I think the next day they got back to me with an estimate how a $1 increase would increase the rate of smuggling in Louisiana by like 30%. And immediately we were able to go into the legislature, testify on this bill, share this information, write op-eds,
Yep.
and it's a great example of how the SPN network, and combined with utilizing new media, whether even if it's just email, blogging, whatever, you can find information and get it out to people and have an influence on the process.
it's fantastic. Yeah, Mackinac's great. But, okay, well, I want to thank you for joining us and for hosting our meetup, which is right across the street. You may have heard some of the rock music playing earlier in the night, but at the Ernst Cafe. But anyway, keep up the great work.
Great meeting you. I hope you guys enjoyed New Orleans. This is one of the things we've always done well. We're not so good at governing ourselves, but we do know how to show people a good time.
That's right, and we appreciate it.